a clip, right?
Yeah, I wanted to start off with recording. We're recording now. So we'll start off then with a with a video. Everybody can see that. This was in Fort McMurray, British Columbia in 2016. Notice on one side of the street, it looks pretty bad. The other side of the street, it doesn't look bad at all. And you'll notice there's a few embers in the air, but not too many. But you'll see on the other side, the fire has not jumped the road, but you'll see a few burning spots. Like here's one right here out in the street, probably a pile of leaves. Here's another right here. This is a juniper. And we got this, this ground truth confirmed that is a juniper indeed. And here's another little pile of leaves. Now you can see some of these embers dropping in here. Now what I want you to notice here, look at this pile right here. We can watch this until the end of the movie. This pile right here, that's about 20, 25 feet away from that home. And that juniper is just a small juniper, less than 3 feet high. Now watch it as a tiny little gust of wind catches it. There we go. Now that home is on fire because of that juniper. And that juniper was ignited. That's the only thing on the block there that was ignited. A couple of piles of leaves and a couple of juniper plants. That's why we've been adamant here about removing junipers. Let's see, stop sharing.
Yep.
Okay, so first thing I'd like to do here is to have David Teta will explain the process for the meeting tonight. David?
Thanks, John. So tonight we'll be showing you 2 different videos followed by panel discussions from our panel members who John is going to introduce. And after each individual session, there'll be a chance for questions and answers. And the way we're thinking it will be best to work this is for participants, all of you out there as participants, to please type in your questions.
God.
And John will then, Carol Joy actually will be reading the questions, and she'll then hand it off to whomever she thinks is best positioned to answer a particular question. So again, while the videos are playing and while the panelists are talking right immediately after the videos, you can type in your questions, and then during the Q&A session, after each of the 2 parts of the meeting, you'll have a chance to have your questions read and answered. Now, really quickly, I know some of you, I apologize, this is probably redundant information, but if you want to type in a question, for most of you who have a regular computer screen, you can look at the bottom of your Zoom meeting window and you'll see a little icon that looks like a comic strip speaking bubble, and underneath it is the word chat. Click on that icon and a window called the chat window should pop up. Once you have that window visible, there should be, it's like typing in a text message almost. You should see a 2 at the bottom of your screen and then the word everyone next to it. You simply then type in a message in the type message here box and hit either the enter or return key, and your message will then appear in the chat window. If for any reason you have a problem doing that, you could always text me at 206-601-3040, and I can try to either talk you through it or just text me your question and I could alert Carol Joy as to what the question is. Does anyone have a quick question about that before we get into the introduction of the panelists in terms of how to do a chat?
Yes. If that doesn't work, can we go to plan B, which is perhaps you can just unmute yourself and ask the question straight away?
Yes, I guess the question is, how will I know that that needs to be done? You can text me and then that would alert me that you want to be unmuted and I could raise that up. But I think unless they've texted me, there's no way I'm necessarily going to know someone was unsuccessful in typing a message into chat.
Well, there is another way. Actually, if you just wave your hand like this.
Visually, right.
Right.
So I guess people could do that, although I hadn't planned on monitoring visually the way I'm set up. I hadn't planned on monitoring visually everybody that way.
Okay. I just wanted to bring up plan B in case we can't get A going properly.
Okay, and I'll bring up a couple of other things. Ellen chatted on an iPad. Chat is under the 3 dots at the top right.
Thank you,
So
Ellen Jane.
that's going to be different. Yeah, thank you, Ellen Jane. And then also, if someone is on their phone dialing in, I don't know how they're going to do it unless they text David. And if you didn't get his phone number, one way you could do it, what I would do is get my directory and look up David Teta in the directory and text him quickly that way.
Yes.
So, you know, you have lots of options here.
Yeah, so I'll just say my phone number one more time real quick. 206-601-3040.
Okay.
Okay, David, thank you very much. So I hope we all have an orientation of how this is going to work. So let's move on then. I'd like to introduce our host and panelist. I'm the host, John Hanson. I think most of you know me, but my current profession is in fire. I've gone kind of full circle. I started off in fire way back when. So I have a little bit of expertise in what we're talking about here. I'd also like to introduce Bill Davis. Bill Davis is also in fire. And then Carol Joy Harris. She's not in fire at all. Just hot water, maybe.
I'm not on fire either.
Yeah. Okay, then there's Michelle Rivers. Michelle Rivers is a notable gardener here. And Michelle, as I recall, you're working in the field now of garden landscape planning and so forth. So I think your input's going to be very useful tonight. And then Bob Tannum. Bob has been a radio spokesman for many years, and he is a noted horticulturist. So with all of that, I think we'll just get right on going with what we're going to do here. The first video I want to share is called Fire Smart Landscaping, and I'm just going to let it speak for itself. And we'll go ahead and share that screen. Let's see.
Push the button.
Go, and off we go.
Hi, I'm Faye Mark from the University of California Marin Master Gardeners. Today I'm going to show you how to create and maintain a beautiful fire smart landscape. Most traditional residential landscapes include foundation plantings and large trees and shrubs near the house. We're used to this look, but it turns out there are better ways of organizing your landscape that may help protect your home when a wildfire is burning nearby. We're often asked the question, what are the safest plants? Truth is, all plants burn. When it comes to fire smart landscaping, it's much more important to consider where a plant is situated and how it is maintained than to assume some plants are better than others. The area within 5 feet of your house is the most critical. During a wildfire, embers can travel long distances. They tend to collect near the base of a home's exterior walls and will ignite anything that burns. To avoid that, we recommend minimizing anything that can burn in this area. including wood mulch and plants. This also means moving items like firewood, lumber, patio furniture, and garbage cans. Clearing this area of combustibles is like creating a force field that defends your home against fire. This is a whole new way to think about landscaping, since many of our homes have plantings right up against the walls and foundation. Just take it step by step. Start by removing plants in front of sliding glass doors or windows and remove any wood mulch. Next, focus on taller plants under eaves and vines climbing on your house. Low-growing or ground-hugging plants are less likely to cause a problem. Just be sure they're well hydrated and free of dead or dry material. Beyond 5 feet from the house, it's all about maintenance. The goal is to create defensible space that acts as a buffer between your house and your garden. It means looking at your garden with slightly different eyes. First, you want to interrupt the path of a fire by creating horizontal and vertical spacing between plants. That sounds complicated, but it's really not. You can create horizontal space by adding stepping stones, paths, patios, or walls. Any non-combustible surface between plantings helps stop the path of a fire. They can be as simple as gravel paths or as complicated as a low stone wall. The idea is to think of your planting beds as clumps or islands, with non-combustible surfaces providing separation to keep a fire from spreading along the ground. Vertical spacing is about stopping fire ladders. Fire ladders are when fire from lower plants spreads to nearby taller plants. If you stroll through your garden, are there places where shrubs are close to low tree canopies? If so, try to create space between them. Limb up trees and keep shrubs pruned. It's an easy and important way of interrupting a fire's path. The density of plantings provides another clue about how a fire could travel through your garden. You want to have a little breathing space in your garden. Consider breaking up hedges and large swaths of uninterrupted plantings to stop fire in its tracks. Another good rule of thumb is to keep low-growing plants closer to the house and taller plants away from the house. Second, you want to reduce your garden's fuel load. This is a fancy way of saying keep your garden cleaned up. Anything that burns is fuel for a fire. Diseased, dried, or overgrown trees and shrubs have more fuel than well-pruned trees and shrubs. So do weeds, leaves, and pine needles in roof gutters, and debris that's gathered under decks. Keep things cleaned up to starve the fire of fuel. As we like to say, don't be fuelish. Don't worry, you don't need to pick up every last leaf on the ground. Just be on the lookout for excess fuel, being extra vigilant the closer you are to your home and other built structures. Do you see plant material that would be useful for starting a campfire? If so, that's probably a good clue that it needs to be removed. Step into your garden and look up. Do you see tree branches near the roof line? Try to keep branches 10 feet from your roof or chimney, and definitely not touching the walls of your house. That way you'll avoid a buildup of needles and leaves on your roof and your rain gutters. Are there any diseased, dead, or dried shrubs or trees that need to be pruned or removed? Now look down. Are paths clear of debris? Do plants look healthy and hydrated? Plants that are properly hydrated are more resistant to fire and to pests and diseases. Even some drought-resistant plants may need a little supplemental water during extended dry periods. What about mulch? A layer of mulch improves soil quality, regulates soil temperature, reduces weeds, and helps retain water. Use non-combustible mulches like stone or gravel within 5 feet of any structure, including decks and sheds. Further out, choose larger composted wood chips and avoid applying mulch greater than 2 inches deep. Now let's talk about choosing plants, a favorite topic for master gardeners. We recommend plants that don't need much water, are easy to maintain, and that contribute to the ecological health of the surrounding area. We also suggest avoiding plants that are messy or invasive, like ivy and pampas grass, meaning they grow or spread so fast it's hard to keep them under control. Remember, you're trying to reduce your fuel load. Start by assessing your garden's growing conditions, such as sun exposure and climate, and then select plants that thrive in that environment. In other words, choose the right plant for the right place. Don't worry, we have tools to help you with that. Just visit the UC Marin Master Gardener website to learn more. We even have plant lists that you can print and take to the nursery. We also have demonstration gardens where you can check out dozens of plants firsthand that are beautiful, colorful, and suitable for our Marin microclimates. Visit us at the Falkirk Cultural Center in San Rafael and at Harvey's Garden at Blackie's Pasture in Tiburon. That's it. Thanks for joining me, and congratulations on taking the first step towards creating a gorgeous, thriving, fire-smart landscape. Happy gardening.
Okay. So the panelists, what do you think? How can we apply this information to the typical very small gardens in Marin Valley?
Well, go ahead.
One of the first things that's quite easy is to rake up dead leaves and to make sure you're not storing anything like she said, in your carport or near your house that could be combustible. So that's an easy first step, is clean up. And before we came onto the webinar, we discussed the curb right outside each person's home. If debris gathers there, that can be a significant fire hazard too. So take the rake and the broom out and get some good exercise, sweeping up those leaves and pine needles. It's good for us to be out in the sunshine. We get vitamin D, which is wonderful for our bodies and keeps us a little trimmer to bend down and pick leaves up if we're able to do it. So I actually quite enjoy sweeping. I think it's a nice therapy. So that's a very simple first step. Clean up.
Clean up. Okay, very good. That's simple and not too expensive. We can probably all manage that. Take a broom and a rake and sort of just start cleaning up. Bob, what'd you have to add?
Well, I think the main thing is to plan the landscape around what you think you can possibly get away with. One of the thoughts here I had when I was looking at all the very fabulous landscapes was that this mulch and that type of thing wasn't necessarily that fireproof when it was put out. And we get a lot of different kinds of things in here in our area where you can pick up any type of mulch that you want. But when you do, you really ought to be very careful of the amount of stuff that you put in your yard underneath anything. And I think the main thing, and I think that's been, I'm looking at my junipers in front of my house. They are trimmed. They are not going to be fireproofed or anything like that, but there's nothing clean or anything like that they could transfer any problem to my house. So I'm very concerned about that at times. Yes. Just a thought.
Okay. Any other input there?
There
One
are
of
some.
the-
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Carol Joy.
There are some chats here. Someone, Gail Uselton says, way too many yards that are not maintained, dead weeds, some tall. What about decks that are full of junk? One in particular I'm thinking of is old bamboo fencing that is just sitting rotting. How can we help? How can we get help for those that clearly need it?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
And that is something that that PAC is concerned with because it has to do with budget. What the park, if the park is paying for it, what the park can afford. There is the Just 1 Hour group that Ray Schneider organizes, and if anyone is unable to do their own gardening, or in this case cleanup, they can request someone who is a volunteer who has volunteered through Just 1 Hour, and they could spend just 1 hour coming over and helping. So there's that.
Is that still going on while we have shelter in place,
Oh,
Carol
yeah.
Joy?
Oh,
Okay.
sure. Yeah. In fact, people are using that for other things too, like grocery shopping. Okay, there's more here. From the same person, Gail says, I understand that Los Robles has a group that comes in and does cleanup at no charge. I think it's the Lions Club. Someone said, this is from Quentin, when we had the fire department here last, the chief or assistant chief said it would take less than 1 minute for fire to blow from the lower park to the, and then it drops off. I don't know what that was about. From Ann Lakota, there's a hillside running between the houses on Scenic and Meadowview, right? There are trees, tall bushes, and ivy, all of which are close to the houses. Should something be done about that? And that is exactly what we were talking about. Michelle was mentioning it just before we went live here. Do you want to talk about that for a second, Michelle?
Sure. Well, I have the advantage of walking my dog twice a day around the park, and I go from one end to the other a lot of the time. So I noticed just last night, because I knew about the webinar, so I was looking at everybody's gardens, and I saw masses of pine needles on a hill and coming down into the street. In some areas, they were 3 inches deep, and I thought, gosh, that is just tinder. You know, these embers can fly up to 10 miles if there's a wind. And if an ember hit that, it would just ignite completely. So we discussed before coming on the webinar, perhaps getting volunteers to rake that down off that hill, and perhaps getting a sweeper and going around and sweeping the gutters and cleaning out, you know, with our own piece of equipment here. But I would suggest that we pursue, if Novato has a sweeping system where they come in and at no charge sweep the streets, why don't we qualify for a free sweep periodically? So I think I would suggest that our PAC board looks into that if possible. You know, the more sweeping we have, the better, right?
Not necessarily.
Oh, yes. Bob said that sometimes the sweepers leave behind more mess than, I don't have that experience, so I don't know, Bob, but very good point. We could try it out anyway, couldn't we?
Well, that would be helpful, I think, if you know, if we did that. But you know, really, most of the problem is in our yards and around our homes, and you know, so I'll put out this question: how do we generate in our very small yards and with the limited budgets that we have and limited physical capabilities for the vast majority of us here? How do we manage that? How do we build a yard, a fire safe, a fire smart landscape in our yard?
Okay, I just want to say there was another chat here about, this is from Eddie and Quentin, and they say, we think we have residents who are willing to help with the removal of juniper, which seems to be the singly largest threat here. I would agree with that. Again, the fire department rep told us if all the juniper were removed, 95% of our risk would be gone. I don't think that it makes any sense that any individual resident's complaints should stand in the way of safety for the entire park. Why are we talking about landscape when we have identified the fire dangers in the park and are not concentrating on that? Actually, we are concentrating on that. The PAC has been, well, actually, MVEST, a committee of PAC, has been extremely concerned about that, and we have gotten rid of about 90% of the junipers in the park. There are still some holdouts, but this webinar is not really about that. It's about what we as individuals can do in our own landscaping, in our own gardens. So the people who can't do it, that's another subject, and it needs to be addressed in other ways. But for we who are on this call, what are your questions about what you can do in your yard?
Carol Joy, I just wanted to
Yeah.
point out that Deborah Boyer has had an outstanding question for a while.
Oh, okay.
And
where
is
is
there a
that?
good resource for having trees inspected for fire prevention?
Oh, Bill, do you want to talk about that? Did you
The
hear the
fire-
question?
Yes, I did. And the fire district's been in and out of here multiple times. If you're curious about a tree, you can certainly call the front desk and they'll respond. I don't know how quickly they'll get back to you, but it's done on a priority basis. This particular entity, this mobile home park, is unlike anything else in the city. And it has its own internal problems. Our biggest problem has been on the outside of it, something jumping in. So we've got the peripheral grasses cut down and a lot of the lateral fields been taken care of. Now the focus needs to be shifted where it's going today. The most important area, even if you do have pyrophytic plants around and there's controversy if your neighbor, that kind of a problem exists and you can't find an agreement. The most important thing you can do from the fire district's point of view is in a little story I want to share with you. A deputy fire marshal was talking to me about a week and a half ago about a fellow lived on an acre of land up on the top of Green Point, nice vista, manicured everything, had his grasses taken right down to the nub, and he was watching it very carefully, but he didn't do something very, very important. He didn't take care of the plants and possible fire within 5 feet of his house. A year ago, he lost his house. He did everything right, and yet it didn't work. And so if you look at that and just apply that to here, if you take care of everything 5 feet away from your house, you've made a significant contribution right there to your own personal safety and your neighbor.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Bill. I think that's a good segue into our next video that we're going to look at. So,
Okay, excuse me, John. I just wanted to say there's one
Sure.
other comment. Inga Grace has a comment about Los Robles has a Help Your Neighbor Day when volunteers gather and help everyone who needs it. And then Gail Usilton mentioned that it's the Rotary Club that helps over at Los Robles. So those are just two other comments, real quick comments before we move to the next section. And I think that covers pretty much.
okay, great. Thank
Probably.
you. But I think that there's, I think there are resources we haven't tapped yet. And this is a great, right here, your input is a great resource for MVEST, so that we can consider these things and make it a priority to find those sorts of external resources to come in and help us out. Okay.
Hi, my name is Todd Lando. I'm the coordinator at Fire Safe Marin. Since 2017, wildfires have destroyed more than 30,000 homes in California. To protect our families and communities, we need to learn how structures ignite during wildfires and take action to protect our own homes. It's not uncommon for a home to be completely destroyed while the surrounding vegetation, particularly mature trees, is untouched by the fire. This is because the home itself and the immediate area around the home is most vulnerable to falling embers, which can be carried by wind far ahead of the fire. The concept of defensible space is not new. It's been required by law in Marin since the 1930s. You may have received a notice in the past from your local fire department asking you to cut the grass or trim the trees around your home. Even if you didn't receive a notice, you're still required to do this routine maintenance. This is defensible space. When we think of defensible space, it's helpful to imagine different zones, depending on the distance from the building we want to protect. More intensive maintenance and greater attention to detail is required the closer you are to the home. Today, we're only going to talk about the most important of the defensible space zones. This is the area closest to your house, within 5 feet of any part of a building, including the decks or anything attached to the home. This is the area that is most vulnerable to igniting from embers during a wildfire and should be more aggressively maintained for fire resistance. We call this Zone 0. 0 means zero combustibles. Nothing that can ignite from embers should be placed, planted, or allowed to accumulate here. This is ground zero for igniting homes during a wildfire. To create an effective Zone 0, you need to understand how homes actually ignite during wildfires. Studies have shown that 60 to 90% of homes destroyed in wildfires are ignited by tiny embers, not the flames of the fire itself. These embers can be carried by wind for miles in front of the fire, and they'll ignite any combustible surface or material they land on. Laboratory research has helped us engineer better materials and building features to protect homes from wildfires and embers. Many of these features have been incorporated into California's building codes, especially Chapter 7A, the Wildland-Urban Interface Code. The same research has helped identify specific measures a homeowner can take in Zone 0. Building codes only help when a new home is built or an existing home is remodeled. But the work you do in Zone 0 can be undertaken at any time. Fortunately, many of the things you can do to protect your home and property against embers are simple and inexpensive, or even free. Some are more complex and might require upgrades or changes to your home. We know that during wildfires, embers tend to collect near the base of a home's exterior walls and will ignite anything there that burns. This is the first place you should look to determine how vulnerable your home is. You have wood siding that extends within 6 inches of the ground. You have bark mulch, plants, or a buildup of leaves in this area. Even some homes that look fire hardened might be vulnerable here. Is the wood sheathing beneath your home's stucco walls exposed, leaving an opening where flames and embers can ignite the home from inside the walls? To protect this vulnerable area near the base of your exterior walls, we recommend removing anything that can catch fire or burn, especially wood chips, bark mulch, fallen leaves and needles, and even most plants. If you're a gardener, you know that mulch plays an important role in your landscape. Mulches hold moisture in the ground and when used correctly can provide nutrients and keep your plants healthier, a good thing from a fire perspective. Unfortunately, wood or bark mulch in Zone 0 can be one of your home's biggest vulnerabilities. Despite the positive attributes, many common mulches are combustible, a major drawback when your home is located in a wildfire-prone area. Within 5 feet of any part of your home, you should choose inorganic mulches like gravel or stone instead of wood or bark. Hardscape pathways of decomposed granite, cobblestone pavers, or concrete are great choices too. These materials offer superior ember resistance and can stop a creeping fire from reaching your home. Even if you've chosen rock or gravel, you still need to clean this area regularly. Any windblown leaf litter or debris that collects in Zone 0 is vulnerable to igniting from embers. Protecting Zone 0 also means moving any common items you might have stored there, like wood piles, firewood, lumber, or even patio furniture and garbage and recycling cans. Never store anything combustible under decks or porches or overhangs. We know it's a convenient place to store or hide materials, but this is a recipe for disaster. Keep these areas spotlessly clean year-round. Consider screening or enclosing the underside of decks to protect from embers and help you resist the temptation to store things there. When outdoor furniture and decorations are placed near a structure or on a deck, porch, or patio, there's a risk that they'll act as kindling and ignite your home during a wildfire. Wood or plastic patio furniture, natural fiber doormats, shades, screens, umbrellas, and curtains can all ignite easily from embers. Evidence exists that many otherwise ignition-resistant homes have burned because of the homeowner's choice of accessories. Choose outdoor accessories made from non-combustible or ignition-resistant material. A heavy rubber doormat or a decorative metal grate is a better choice than a natural fiber doormat. Cast aluminum furniture is better than wicker or hardwood. Take advantage of time at home and nice weather to get out in the yard today and focus on removing dead plant material, starting in Zone 0 closest to the home. Remove dead shrubs and trees, fallen leaves and needles, dry grass and weeds, fallen twigs and branches. Pay closest attention to zone 0, but remember that winds can quickly blow debris back towards your house if you don't keep your entire yard clean. When creating your home's defensible space, zone 0 is ground zero, the most important place and the place you should start. But don't ignore the other zones. Your next steps will focus on zone 1 from 5 to 30 feet and zone 2 up to 100 feet from your home. Check out our other videos or visit www.firesafemarin.org to learn more.
Okay, so that's our, whoops.
Go.
Yeah,
Rocking out,
think-
John.
yeah, it
That's
doesn't
for the
understand, doesn't understand off.
That's
I
for
have
the
a
dance
story
tomorrow
I'd like-
night, John.
Yeah, there you go.
I have a
Well,
story I'd like to share.
Yeah, let's, yeah, I'd like to ask the panelists here, what do you think of that? What can we do that would be very simple right up front?
Well, make sure you don't have material that has eucalyptus leaves in it next to your house. I noticed that today, and they thought this was a mulch, but be careful of the mulch you're using. I think that's a real big thing you have to be aware of.
Good point. Good point.
Michelle,
park.
you're you're like hardscape around your home. So,
Well, yes, I do. And like many people here, I inherited a pre-existing garden, but there's some really beautiful maples and well-established trees here that are right next to my house. And they've obviously been here, 30 years. And I'm looking at it right now because my iPad's right in front of the tree outside. And I'm thinking, could I possibly cut down this gorgeous maple? And I don't think I could. But what I do is I get up on the roof and I clean out the gutters a lot. And I prune it away from my house, but literally it's only about a foot or so away. Additionally, I'm thinking, well, if I was watching this video and I lived in the park and I didn't have 5 feet of defensible space, because a lot of people don't, where would I have a garden if I got rid of my plantings? So you could do gravel, you could have pots, but again, you have to maintain them, making sure that there aren't leaves and things in them. But it's a very, they did show us examples of homes, but they're homes with loads of property around them, which we don't have. I mean, I actually have quite a big garden, but I'm one of the rare larger gardens here in the park. So I think, being very conscious, like Bob said, don't put down combustible ground cover is really, really important. Use gravel if you can, but you still have to get the leaf blower out and the rake and get your leaves off. Concrete slabs, and in the back of my garden I actually have stone pathways between my beds, but they're not 5 feet wide. They're like 2.5 to 3 feet. So I'm doing the best I can with that, but it's a tough one when you live in a mobile home park that has very limited space, and also well-established trees that you might be inheriting when you come in. I have noticed recently that some people have been replacing their decks, and I'm not sure that they're actually putting in non-combustible decking. And that's a bit of a worry too. If you are ripping out an old deck, and I've got to do this year, you should get fire retardant decking, because that can be a real big problem. And it is a little bit more expensive, but I think it's worth the investment, because if you lose your house because your deck catches on fire, you've lost your home. Anybody else got any thoughts?
First of all, I'd say that, yeah, trees usually take a whipping when we start talking about defensible space and so forth. But, by and large, trees are not a problem. The main problem with trees is that people tend to not maintain them or to limb them up. If they're limbed up about 1/3 the height of the tree or 10 feet up on big trees, that tree is probably in pretty good shape. The biggest problem with it, though, is that they tend to be messy. No
Yeah.
matter what kind of tree, it's going to lose needles or leaves, and that needs to be cleaned up. So the closer it is to your home, the more of a mess you need to deal with on your roof, and you always need to deal with the with the litter left behind on the ground. Even if you have a nice hardscape, it's not going to do any good around your home if it's covered with leaf litter all the time.
And also there's the consideration that perhaps some people are physically not able to get up on the roof. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to get up and do it. And perhaps some people can't afford to hire somebody to do that. So perhaps we should add that to the list of volunteer work.
Absolutely.
That we help people clean their gutters out. I mean, I've literally seen plants growing in some people's gutters, so they haven't been cleaned out for years.
Well, yeah, it
So
looks like
there's
a hydroponic garden.
Huh? Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's an expense, and some people are on very, very tight budgets these days. You know, we're all looking at, you know, that sort of situation right now with COVID and everything. So perhaps, you know, we could really kick in our volunteer program here to help even more, because there are folks, I mean, the lady who said about the bamboo rotting away, yep, that is an absolute piece of tinder ready for an ember to hit. So it would be great to help people out, and just all of us sort of, it's our neighbors, and do what we can to help them.
Well, if we're going to put notices out and stuff like that and things of that nature, like we did for the webinar tonight, why can't we put a list of things like, here's where you can find help, and put that in the boxes so that people have that as an emergency kind of situation they can use?
That's a great idea.
Great, Bob. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called
And it also might
communication.
be a little embarrassing for some people to say, you know, I can't afford to maintain my home. So maybe somebody could gently knock on a door and say, would you like some help? You know?
Yeah.
Well, and there's the other thing that if you are going to say, I will help and volunteer, then what do you do with the debris that is not going to fit in the green waste can?
Well, there's lots of green waste cans at the club. We could use those. And in my own situation, if I sort of plan my pruning, I do a big green can's worth, and then I knock on a neighbor's house. Carol, Joy, and Bill many times have loaned me their green bin, you know, that it's half empty. So I put mine in. I sort of distribute it throughout the neighborhood. But we could black bag it and then distribute it into bins, you know, every week or every Sunday to help get rid of it. Or maybe Matt could come up with an idea where we do a big cleanup and we rent a truck, throw it all in, and take it to the Marin recycling station.
I'd like to say that on August 26th, there's going to be a chipper day here in the park, thanks to John Hansen arranging that through Fire Safe Marin. And Irma has had the brilliant idea of the people who want to going down and helping to gather the vegetation that is near the end of Clubview and getting that ready for the chipper when it comes. And you can also bring your own woody vegetation that is not leaves, but you know, small log kind of things that would go into a chipper. You can bring those down on that day of the 26th. The actually, Irma could unmute herself and remind me which day it is of the community cleanup. Bring your gloves and come clean that vegetation. On what day, Irma? Is it the 20?
The 25th.
You could.
The 25th.
Of August?
Okay. Of August, yeah, the day before the chipper day. And then in response to someone's chat here, from Timo. I was alarmed to hear earlier in the meeting that a fire would move through the park in 1 minute. Is this accurate? No, that's not accurate. Bill could probably answer that better, but again, the focus of this meeting is what you can do in your own yard to help firescape, to help landscape your zero-scape. I don't think any of us here have a zone 2. A lot of us don't even have a zone 1. All we have is the zone 0.
Well, Carol Joy, we do actually have, in one respect, we do have a zone 1, and some of us have even a partial zone 2, and that is our streets. Zone 1 is 5 to 30 feet, and our homes across the street are 40 feet away at a minimum. So a fire, just like we saw in that very first video that I showed, fire on one side of the road, homes on the other. The fire on one side of the street here in the park will stay there. It's not going to jump the road. What will jump the road would be embers. So that's where hardening your home to embers will, if there was a fire that took off, it's not going to burn down the entire park if we each do our own job of home hardening and our defensible space out front. Keep those embers from igniting your home.
Excuse me, John. I just wanted to bring up a long-standing question we had very early in the discussion from Pia, and it relates to if people want to ask for help. For instance, Ellen Jane asking for help from Matt earlier. So Pia's question is this: I heard Ellen Jane at the board meeting request to have her junipers removed. If I understand it correctly, she's made the request in September last year. And so watching the video of the juniper bush ignite made her think about the fact that she's wondering about Ellen's request. I guess it relates to if other people want to make a request as a means of dealing with your 5-foot zone. The question becomes, how soon would that request get handled if you did make a request?
Well, Matt's answer to that at that last board meeting was that there, as Bill said earlier in this meeting, there is a list of priorities, and if you only have a couple of juniper bushes, that falls down on the list of priorities. If someone else has a tree that's dead, that's hanging right over their mobile home here, that's of more importance. So it has to do with priorities, and that was Matt's answer to that. Is
I have a couple of questions.
Smaller jobs.
One of the things that I've noticed behind my home and Carol, my neighbor's house, we have a bottle brush, we have blackberries, when they're to the point where a lot of them are, and we've put a complaint into Matt, and nothing to this point. What happened was they cleaned off the next to the walking path behind our place, but nothing has happened to the real fire hazard. And I'm not quite sure what you have to do to get that done. And it's ongoing. And one of the other things I really should let people know, that just because you have a green bush like a bottle brush does not mean it can't be burned, because it can be, the interior of all of these plants is really dangerous. And of course, this is one of the main reasons that all of the junipers were eliminated.
That's right, Bob. You know, as Faye Mark said in the first video we watched, that all plants will burn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So which brings me to another chat that someone just did about oleanders. She said she sees a lot of oleanders around the park, and should they be removed? Michelle had a good comment about that the other day, which was, Michelle?
I'm sorry, I don't recall what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, what she said was, if you have an oleander that's overgrown, that has a lot of underbrush that's right next to the ground,
trimming it up from underneath.
Right. That's different. Mm-hmm. You can limb it up so that it becomes more like a tree. And there are different ways, you know, just keep it pruned and keep it hydrated and take out the dead branches. In fact, in one of those videos, they even showed people trimming an oleander, pruning an oleander. So it has to do with maintenance, which is, if you can do it yourself, free.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
One
sorry.
of the reasons that oleanders are so predominant in the area is deer don't eat them. And so they're one of the few deer-resistant plants that are in the landscapes around here. And I enjoy them myself. And I think that it's something in bloom and something wonderful, I think, is just something we need in the village. So clean them up and live with them.
That's right. And
Actually,
oleanders, they're not fire prone. Actually, it takes quite a bit to burn oleander. When I was a fireman many years ago, on the Highway 99, there were there was 110 miles of oleanders on the strip in the middle. I never saw one burn. Never.
well, we have a fabulous example of pruning underneath on Marin Valley Drive.
Exactly.
As you drive out, there's two fabulous, I mean, those, we would be at a big loss to lose those beautiful plants, but they have been pruned underneath. So they actually look structurally, I mean, architecturally, the branches look lovely. And then you have this beautiful blossoming on the top. Just like Bob said, prune them up and, you've taken a good deal of problem away. And as Carol Joy said, making sure you rake up the leaves and things like that.
Okay, well, this has been a very nice discussion, but I wanted to keep this first webinar and probably the ones to follow at under an hour. And right now we are just under an hour. So I would like to ask the panelists to make a final comment if they wish. And then we can, there's a couple of other items I want to get through very quickly, and we'll move on.
John, could I just mention one quick thing? John Fell or Irma made a comment to everyone that for the Chipper Day, the actual collection day is August 25th. The Chipper Day is
25th, yes.
So
is the cleanup day the 24th then?
No, the cleanup day where you can bring your own woody vegetation and help clean up the stuff that's already been cleared down there and needs to be gathered is the 25th. And then the Chipper Day is the 26th.
Okay, we're not having a community cleanup day. I misunderstood that. So that's not applicable?
No, that's a little different.
Okay, got it.
Although we could have one in the future. We should have one.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, Bob, any final comments?
Well, I was going to share a story that I had. I was 4.5 years old, and we lived up in a place not too far from Laytonville. You may not know that.
Oh,
absolutely.
This would be 1934, and I was 4.5 years old. And there was the Laytonville fire, of which in some areas you can still see the damage that this thing did. And my job at 4.5 years old, my grandfather gave me a shovel and he said, if you see a spark, shovel some dirt over it. And I've been living with that for an awful long time now. Yeah. But I just thought I'd share a thing that no matter how old or young you are, you can always grab a shovel and put out an ember.
That's true. Well, I would just like to say in conclusion, from my perspective, how much joy the garden does bring to me personally, gardening, and how much joy keeping your garden looking attractive brings to the community. People are always stopping when I'm outside sweeping or picking up leaves or pruning or planting, and they say, thank you so much. We love going by your garden. And it brings a lot of joy to people to have a beautiful garden and to be able to see a tree. And I was talking to a neighbor the other day and she was laughing. She says, oh, these leaves from my tree just get on my nerves. And I sent her a picture of her tree this morning. And I said, that tree is one of the princesses on our road. She's gorgeous. Get to love your leaves, but pick them up. And she had a gardener in with a blower, and she's actually thinking of moving a lot of the pots she has from underneath the tree so it's easier for her to clean up. Great. Which is a very wise thing. But I also want to just close by saying, getting out in your garden, you get the vitamin D from the sunshine, you know, screening and all that. And gardens do, there was a report done in 2006, a study that said gardening could lower the risk of dementia by 36%. So, you know, I'm out there every day. I'm helping my mind, even though I forgot your question, Carol Joy. So that's really important. And also, gardening helps to combat loneliness. And that is true as well. So, you know, us all working outside, we meet our neighbors, we talk to our plants. I name some of my major trees. I've got Miss Kyoto out there as my maple. I've got Olivetti as my olive tree, you know, and I talk to them. And they're wonderful. So, you know, enjoy our gardens as well as taking care of
Thank you very much, Michelle. Carol Joy, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to say an acronym, which is IME. And that is, you can do something right now from all the ideas in the videos and what we've talked about. That is I, immediate, M, meaningful, and E, easy. So for Bill and I, for us, we've lived here many years, and we do things one at a time. Okay, the next thing. Oh, that little juniper that we loved, that we thought wasn't going to be a problem. That was, oh, well, it's more than 5 feet away from the house. Okay, we finally got out of denial at a certain point years ago. Got rid of that juniper. Then it's, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? So in the videos, I think they talked a lot about very easy things that you could do. And I know a lot of people here in the park eventually replace something. Maybe you're replacing a pot or replacing a deck. We talked about that. Or something you're doing in your house that's like the next step. So I would suggest before you do that, before you decide on a plant or a pot or what to do with a tree, take a look again at this webinar, look at those videos again and all the ideas they have in there and the cautions they have in there, and use those ideas when you're doing your whatever it is, your next step that you've just come out of denial about. That's my comment.
All right, well, thank you very much. Bill?
We live in a beautiful, bucolic area of Marin County in so many ways. One road in, one road out, and we have a lot of security here, but fire is a huge threat. And, you know, we're all in this together. And I'm so impressed that so many people weighed in today because, you know, risk is reduced with knowledge. When we're talking about it, we're going to move forward. I don't care if it's a large piece or a small piece. We're going to make a contribution here collectively, and we have a safer environment. Already a lot's been done. There's a lot more to be done. The attitude's right. And with that, you can really build a lot of good stuff.
All right, thank you very much.
Very true.
I would like to say that I would like to echo really what Bob Tannum said, and that is to plan your garden. Start right now. You can start this tonight. You can start it tomorrow. If you procrastinate, you can start tomorrow.
You can always email me.
Yeah, there you go. There's Bob. Michelle is a resource. We have master gardeners here in the park. There are master gardeners throughout Marin. They're very, very good people, and they volunteer. You can ask them to assist you in your planning process. You can go to the website that was shown on the video there, marinmastergardeners.com, and there's people there that will help you, including the lady that gave the webinar there. So begin a plan, and then you can start a little at a time. Start picking away at the plan, and then you can begin thinking about that zone 0, that 5 feet plan. How can you plan that? What can you do there to make it attractive? There are very attractive alternatives in hardscape, and again, Michelle can help you with that. So with that, I would like to close things up here. I have a couple of announcements. First of all, I want to acknowledge our panelists here for helping us out tonight. I think we've had a great conversation. I'd like to thank all of you, residents of Marin Valley, for participating here. Great input, very useful for MVEST to go forward. Actually, that was the plan, to just get some good information to, that we can go forward. So we definitely got a lot from you. Thank you very much. I'd like to also acknowledge Fire Safe Marin. Fire Safe Marin is the people that paid for the program. And let's see, and I also want to look at, share with you one last thing, and that is sort of a preview of our next webinar. We haven't exactly planned a date for that yet, but it will be next month or the month after. I'm not sure yet. We're still looking. So let's look at this. This is from the website from the Novato Fire District. Soon you will see these in your mailbox. And this is a major program. This is a pilot actually in Novato, and the other's pilot is in Fairfax, to develop these maps. So there's nothing new on these maps. For evacuation is what this is about. You've got one major route and you have one alternative route. And depending upon what the situation is, we would use one or the other. So that is that part. The other part is for Fire Safe Marin. If we look at programs and go to Living with Fire seminars, then we can see that the one coming up August 25 is a Living with Fire seminar. You can log on to that. It's sort of like this, only a bit more extensive, and put on by Fire Safe Marin. The last one was attended by over 600 residents throughout Marin and all the way down to Santa Cruz, and who knows else where they participated from. So there will be one of these every single month. So with that,
John,
yes.
John, may I just add one last thing?
Sure.
Thank you to David Teta for
yes.
being our technical wizard tonight.
Absolutely.
And yeah, much appreciated. And also to remind everybody that the recording of this webinar, because I don't know about you, but I need to look at those videos many more times to remind myself of all the wonderful information in there. This is being recorded, and it will be on our website. Again, thanks to David Teta. It will be on marinvalley.net, so you can refer to it anytime and get that information again when you need it.
All right. With that, we'll go
Thank
ahead
you.
and, pardon? Oh,
Thank
okay. We'll go ahead. Thank you very much, David. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, John.